Episode number 247, Transforming Your Church's Online Presence with Zach Snyder and Caleb Weidman. Let's do it.
This is the definitive podcast for helping you plan, create, and execute dynamic worship experiences at your church. Useful, practical content in the areas of production, worship, communications, first impressions, and more. This is Making Sunday Happen.
Hey guys, welcome to Making Sunday Happen, the definitive podcast for those who plan, create, and execute worship experiences all around the world. If you have a hand in putting together your large group gathering, either in person or online, this is the place to be. We welcome you here, and we are working hard to bring you guests and information that will help you enhance and transform your large group gatherings to set the stage for people to come to know Jesus as their Savior and take their next step with Him. So welcome. We have had an influx of new listeners and viewers to the podcast over the last couple of months. So if you are new, welcome to the family. My name's Carl, and I lead a team at 1230 Media. We help churches and ministries with media content and training for your worship experience. That's our bullseye. We are laser focused on your worship experience, both the in-person gathering and the online worship experience. We are laser focused on helping you do that through media and through training. And this podcast is one of the channels that we have to talk directly to you and help you and help serve you. We are not here saying that we have all the answers or anything like that. We are serving alongside you, trying to figure out answers, gathering and curating information from other places, or bringing up ideas, or helping you, discover that thing or answer that thing. So we are here to help you with your worship experience. So you can email me, Carl, C-A-R-L, at 1230.media. That's all spelled out. The word 12, the word 30.media, Carl at 1230.media. Feel free to drop me a line or a question. I would love to hear from you. Well, this week, I'm talking with Zach Snyder and Caleb Weidman. These are two of the founders of Blackbar, which is a YouTube channel and a Discord for church media folks. And they have released some great videos helping churches navigate live streaming, communications, and more. So you'll hear from Zach and Caleb, both right after this video from our friends at Secure Give. Check this out.
June the 6th, 2004. It was 5:45 in the morning when the Lord woke me up. And the Lord prompted me and said, walk through the doors that I will open.
Since the first century church, God has been equipping His people for the gospel to be advanced, so that people of every nation would be drawn to Him. Methods have evolved through the centuries, but the power of the message is unchanged. In the 21st century, we have been at the forefront of church innovation, leading a giving revival.
I believe that we're living in the greatest days of church history, and you and I have an opportunity to be a part of something that's going to impact the generations to come.
From our first church over a decade ago to the thousands that we serve today, we believe every donor should be equipped with the resources to give in the moment.
People want to give to your church. It's our job to remove the barriers.
Hey guys, today I welcome Zach Snyder and Caleb Weidman. Zach is the video director at Lifehouse Church and also the host and co-leader of Blackbar, a ministry to inspire and encourage church creatives. Also on the call is Caleb. He is a multimedia and marketing guru, I think is the official name, at Grand Rapids First in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So, Caleb, I interviewed at a church in Novi, Michigan. Is that
wow,
anywhere near you?
It's not near me now, but I actually grew up and I lived on the east side of the state, and it was close to me on that side. I'm on the west side of the state now.
So I'll give you a story here. So my wife and I are from the South, or my wife's from Tennessee. I'm from North and South Carolina. And so sweet tea is like, gold around.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
So we're going up to interview at the church in Michigan, and about halfway there, it's like a 20-hour drive or something. Halfway there, she turns to me in the car, "Hey, they don't have a sweet tea in Michigan." I was like, "What? No!" We might as well just turn around right now.
Right. I'm sure there's some sweet tea around here, but it'll be nothing like what you have in the South, I'm sure.
Yes, Michiganders only have pop there.
Yes, we do have pop. We have plenty of pop.
Not soda.
So, needless to say, I did not take the job at that church.
It's understandable. I get it.
It's all about the tea. Don't worry about the ministry. It's all about
right, for sure. Yeah.
Well, welcome, guys. Thanks for hanging out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So, Zach, kick us off. Tell me about your role at Lifehouse and some of what you get to do there.
Well, I'm in ministry, so basically that means I do everything.
Right.
But my official job title is video director. So most of my work during the week is video production, bumpers, advertisements, promotional content, that kind of stuff. And then on the weekends, Saturday and Sundays, on our pre-COVID normal, I would be leading volunteers, directing, live production, that kind of stuff. So really lots of video production type of things. Kind of had a background in that since college, and basically got the chance to work at a church plant that my parents started about 16 years ago. So pretty much celebrated my 5-year 2 days ago. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Caleb, what about you, man? What's your role at the church?
Yeah, I'm the media marketing director there, so I lead a team, including me. There's 5 of us now, and we handle all manner of marketing and content creation, whether that be graphic design, it'd be video production, web, social media, all that kind of thing. We're not actually involved with the live production aspect. That's actually the tech department. That's kind of where we separate the two. But it is my job to oversee that. I take a more direct role in graphic design quite often, but for the most part, I'm kind of giving art direction, strategy, all that kind of thing for the department.
So how did you guys meet, and what is Blackbar? Give me a genesis of the ministry.
We met back in college, actually. We both went to the University of Valley Forge. We were roommates for, I think, 3 out of the 4 years that we were in college together. And Blackbar has always been kind of a twinkle in our eye. You know, we were at the school, it was a Christian school, and we were at digital media majors. And at the time, actually, it's kind of the funny story that kind of kicked it off. We were involved in a ministry that was it was an arts ministry. There was a lot of people that did music and visual art and dancing and all that kind of stuff, all in different aspects of ministry. And we were involved in one way or another. And eventually we asked if we could incorporate some of the digital abilities that we have, whether it be photography or graphic design or video and everything. And we were given the answer at the time that those skills and those gifts are for advertising ministry. They're not for the ministry itself. And, even young at the time, we knew that's not the right answer. That wasn't the correct. So it set us off on what is almost a decade long search for, like, okay, what is media? What does a media ministry look like, with not just media as the package, media as the coding, but from the foundation all the way up, it is built around these tools that we have to minister to people. And I think Blackbar kind of eventually came of that, of many long nights and conversation and dreaming. And really, we realized at some point that a media ministry is a ministry for church media people. If we can help educate and inspire people to be able to create more impactful media, to be able to share the gospel in new ways and more exciting ways to more specific targets, and not only just show them how to do that, but inspire them to do that, that's a media ministry. And that's kind of the basis of what Blackbar is supposed to be.
Yeah. So it's mainly, Zach, speak to this, it's mainly a Discord and YouTube and just other resources, right? Tell me about it.
Yeah, I mean, so we started out, and we don't really ever do anything halfway. So we decided, what's something that we could do that'll put a lot of work on our plate every week? And we're like, let's do a YouTube video, and let's do a podcast every week. And we didn't really want to start a Facebook group because Facebook has its own kind of weird foray of things. So we decided to start a Discord. And, we had, I don't know, probably 15, 20 some people. We started Blackbar back in January 2020. And it just so happened that whenever kind of COVID hit, we were able to put out 1 or 2 or 3 videos that really just were perfectly timed. In the same regard, our Discord started blowing up. We had a combination of people that were brand new to the ministry, people that were media folks that were just looking for some kind of help. And then we also had media folk who are experienced in the field and wanted to come in and help others. So pretty much right out the get-go, we were able to bring in volunteers that wanted to help us really survive the season. I don't think we could have done it without our certified pros. Like, a lot of people were just experienced in the live stream field and the technical field. And while Caleb and Nick are making videos, while Caleb, Nick, and I are making the podcast, while we're doing the best that we can to keep up with social and even survive in our vocational ministry, we also had this side on the Discord that is literally the tangible effect of helping people in the church. And then now we've just recently hit over about 1,000 members of people that are still regularly asking questions. And, you have your normal group of people that come and go, but we still have seen just, I don't know, really been kind of a humbling way to see that we're able to curate the conversation that's bringing people together. And I think in that way, that's kind of the heart of Discord. Really, I mean, we're inspiring, encouraging, and I just totally blanked on the third one. That's how good we're doing. We're inspiring, we're encouraging, and Caleb, help me out with the last one.
I think we're engaging.
And we're engaging. Yeah, and those 3 things from the content that we're creating is doing those things, but then also the Discord is doing that. So kind of everything is coming together in that we've started to get into kind of this normal where we're able to bring our knowledge and our experience in a humble way, saying, of course, we don't know it all, but we also get to ask these challenging questions in a way that's engaging to the community.
So tell me some of the conversation that's happened in the Discord. What are people asking about? What are people curious of, especially in the age of COVID?
The majority of questions, at least at first, were very technical questions. The people that we were getting at first, especially when COVID went up, the big conversation was and still is church live stream. Because, I mean, really, when you get down to it, being relatively blunt, if you do not have church services, people don't tithe. People don't tithe. Churches get in a big spot of trouble pretty quickly, right? So there was a lot of churches that were avoiding live stream for one reason or another, and some of those are valid, and I'd say some of them are less so. But really, it got to the point of where churches were forced to, kicking and screaming, some of them, come into the live stream world and really understand how that worked and start using that medium. So we were able to get people started up who had zero experience in that world. So while a lot of these bigger Facebook groups and these large communities online have plenty of people of varying level of experience, we were finding people who had never heard of any of this stuff, never heard of any of these resources. These are people who are media starved in a way, and they're just realizing that these tools are available, which I think is an exciting niche that we've kind of picked for ourselves. So a lot of it first started very technical. It almost became like a tech support forum for a while, but and for a lot of people that's what it was, and they came in, they asked their questions, and they left. But we have found, although the minority, a really powerful, I'd say, core group of people, some that are really experienced, some that are still not very experienced, and just constantly growing together, not just in the live stream. Now we have conversations about graphic design and photography and video production and lighting and audio and web design and how to run social media. And really, we're trying to cover every corner of digital ministry from in every medium that's out there, because I think all of them is really powerful tools for spreading the gospel. So it has been a really cool community to watch grow, very like-minded and very cross-denominational, which is not often something you see.
Yeah, and something I think that we've experienced, the three of us specifically in our own way, we've just experienced and seen that the church creatives are such a heavily disenfranchised group of people because they're so deeply involved in one of the phrases that Caleb's coined is manufacturing the mountaintop. They are literally crafting and curating the experiences that people feel on the weekend. And because they're so heavily involved, Weekend Essential, they're doing hours. Your vocational job is colliding with your source of spiritual resources, essentially. And it's so easy for for a disconnect to happen between pastors and creatives. And I think we've seen in a funny way that a lot of people don't really like to talk about their emotions when it comes to the creative field. But the things that we're trying to push people toward is an openness and a willingness to accept and understand that. So it's just been an interesting collision of all our experiences and then bringing this cross-cultural connection into play.
Well, you guys definitely had one particular video that really hit extremely well.
Yeah.
And it talked about, a live stream guide, a live stream setup. How did that come about, and how did it take off, and how have you gotten to help people through that video?
So that video was a result of us, actually me and Nick at our church in Grand Rapids. Nick is the third part of Blackbar. We had a day of the week where our governor had started coming out saying, okay, things were going to start to get locked down. And I and Nick were on this small team of people that were in the church at the time that were kind of just frantically trying to figure out, okay, what is this going to look like for the next couple of weeks? How are we going to pull off the Sunday live stream? What is our communication going to look like, and all that kind of thing? And the only thing that kept coming to my mind over and over and over again, at Grand Rapids First being a relatively large, relatively equipped church to be able to handle something like this, is the thousands and thousands of churches who are so unprepared for this and are about to go dark and with little resources available. And I turned to Nick after the end of what was, a 12-hour workday. And I was like, dude, we got to record today. Like there is going to be a need right now. Michigan was a little bit ahead of the curve when it comes to the shutting down of everything, but we knew it was the whole country was going to do it. And we recorded that day, and we edited all night, and the video came out the next day, and we blasted on every Facebook group, shared it as often, as fast as we could, and it did take off. It found an audience, and people were appreciated. And I think the thing that we focused on the most was a lot of the specific tools that we were recommending were either out of stock at that time, as a lot of people were preparing audio interfaces, video interfaces that were gone. So what we tried to talk about is like, okay, what do you have? You might not be able to buy an audio interface right now, but if you have musicians at your church, they might have something like that already. You might not have a video interface at your church, but if someone at your church may be really big into video games, they might have an Elgato Cam Link sitting around, right? It's a relatively common piece of technology. So, that's what we focused on. And I think that was really helpful for a lot of people who had zero experience on this side of things.
Yeah. Well, with that video and others, I'm going to kind of hit you guys randomly. So
Okay.
some of it's going to be kind of in the moment, live stream and COVID related, and some of it is not. And I just want to get your opinion on it. Okay.
Sure.
So, all right. So topic number one is kind of rapid fire game. All right, here we go.
Okay.
All right. Topic number one, church video announcements. Are they dead? Still do them? Give me your thoughts on video announcements.
I could probably go an hour, but I won't. I think with this one and with a lot of questions, it always is it depends. There's no one answer that's going to be right for all churches. However, with video announcements specifically, I think in the majority of cases, it's not worth to pay someone to do in 5 hours what a pastor could do in 2 minutes. Right? There are other more effective places to put those resources, those media hours, on social media or in a different part of the service that's not going to be replacing a method of communication that's already been working.
Yeah. The funny thing is that we've shifted, we've cut down announcements so we can condense our services for online experience because of the season. But we've essentially moved our announcement block to the 5 minutes pre-service, and now that's essentially becoming announcement videos.
There you go.
We were so against it, but especially in this season, what Caleb said, sometimes it's case by case. And for us, right, the case is that we are having to reintroduce announcement videos, even though we killed them. So,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I have a love-hate relationship with announcement videos. We create them for churches at our ministry.
Right.
But sometimes in discussions with churches, it's like, okay, what's the best fit for your culture? Because one, you might not need, like I was at a church and I had a media guy that was under me that he was the one doing the church announcements, and he was spending, and I know this firsthand, it can be a 2 or 3 day
Yep.
job
Oh, yeah.
at some point
Yeah.
over, because you're scripting, you're shooting, you're editing, you're hearing a million things from a million different ministries, and
Yep.
can we change that? Can we add that? And so it can be 2 or 3 days. So is it worth it for your in-house guy to do it? Is it worth it for you to pay a company like ours to do it? Is it worth it? I think that's the major question that I keep asking is it worth it for your church, for your culture?
Yeah.
Right. And obviously that is a question that everybody has to ask. I know it's something that we used to have video announcements at our church, and just looking at the engagement when we had them on, a lot of times it doesn't matter how fancy we are. We've got a decent sized church. We had the equipment and the resources to be able to pull them off well, and it still turned into the everybody pull out your phones and scroll through Instagram section of our service, right? So, of course there's ways to do them well, and there are absolutely cases where they are, I wouldn't say just recommended, but necessary, especially if you've got multiple campuses, if you've got a schedule you're running to that's very specific. But in most churches, if you can get away without them, I think there's more effective ways of communicating.
Yep. Okay, topic number 2, photographing your church service. So how do you do this without the photographer on stage, or in a weird spot, or you're up against somebody worshiping and trying to capture that moment? How do you photograph your service without looking like a jerk?
Make sure you wear black. Don't wear neon.
Honestly, for sure, being as discreet as you can. I think if you've been any experience in photography, that's certainly second nature. I think the 2 most important things that we talked about in the video, and it's been helpful for me, is that the service or the moment that you're capturing always is a higher priority than the picture of the service or the moment, right? If anything you are doing could distract or detract from what the life change is occurring, you have overstepped your bounds. And I think it can especially be difficult when you're in like an altar call sorts of scenario, or tears are flowing, hands are raised, depending on denomination, all that kind of stuff, right? And
hey, can I stop you from accepting Jesus real quick? I need this photo.
Right, exactly. When you get in that situation, it's very easy for people to see you as almost like an invader, as this outsider coming in and kind of invading their area. And to me, the most effective by far way of dispelling that is to actually visually and spiritually worship while it is that you're working, right? If you're down at the altar or during a worship set or whatever, and you are worshiping and singing along as you're shooting, people won't look at you like you're an outsider, because you are behaving and you are participating in the same worship that they are.
One-handed.
Right. Obviously got to be reasonable, but I think it's
Why was that shot blurry? I don't know.
Right. Yeah, you got to make sure the shot comes out well, for sure. But I think a little being balanced with it is important, but it is super valuable to making you feel more part of that service.
Yeah. And really these tips also go for videographers as well.
Good.
We've seen, we talked in that video and in the following podcast about how we've experienced people on stage in the shot, like a videographer, a photographer, literally getting in front of the performer so that they could get the shot. Don't do that, of course. But yeah, there are so many ways that, especially whenever you start to feel like you're a part of that service, that then everyone else can also feel that as well. I'm a big mover when I worship, so oftentimes you'll see me up front jumping around, and then I'll sneak in and get a couple shots. And I think, just have fun with it. Like that's what we're doing. We're literally worshiping with our technology. So why not embrace that?
So when I was working at New Spring Church, we did a lot of on-stage camera work. We had at least 2 stage cameras and at least 1 tripod camera in the back. And so we would practice on Monday nights. We would do a training session and have the band fully there and shoot their rehearsal and shoot their practice and stuff. And that was a way that we could practice, okay, how can I get this shot without getting in front of the performer? How can I angle my, camera. So I would encourage people to have a practice session or test that out
For
or
sure.
look at that before Sunday, unless you want your, butt to the audience or something.
Absolutely.
All right. Topic number 3, creative blocks. So how do we get creativity going? How can I prevent creative blockage?
This is probably my favorite topic in the whole world. And it disappoints me because this is not one of our better or received videos
really not,
for whatever reason, but it excites me to no end. I think to me there is kind of this huge perpetuated lie about what creativity is to begin with. And I think especially when people who don't regard themselves as creative people or secretly have kind of a self-consciousness about their ability to be creative, is that we look at super creative people, and even when I say super creative, there's probably an image in your head of what that person looks like and what they do and their hobbies and all that kind of stuff.
Looks like Zach.
Right. And their ability to kind of, it seems like magically constantly pull these entirely original ideas out of themselves and are just kind of throwing them around and creating this stuff. And what in reality that person has absorbed and been influenced by a whole heck of a lot of stuff that you just haven't seen yet. And what that person has done has successfully mashed a bunch of ideas together, probably a lot of stuff that you don't know about, and presented that new thing as an original idea. And in reality, there isn't such thing as a purely, absolutely original idea. Like if you're trying to have this creative boost and you shut yourself in a black room and just like, I'm not leaving this place until I come up with something brand new, you never will, because that's not how humans work. To me, the kind of golden standard for originality is taking one thing and taking another thing that have never been mixed together before and mixing them together for the first time. And I think a lot of creatives have this, I know even for myself for a long time, was like, I hope no one finds out that everything that I've ever done is actually just taking pieces from here and there and shoving them together. That is all anybody has ever done. And that's okay. And that's the standard to be hitting before, because if you're aiming at this higher thing this whole time, you literally are incapable of doing it. God's the only one who could do it from scratch. We can't. We've been building on his creation and the ideas of others since the beginning of time. And I think once you understand that, there's a release of pressure to aim for that. And it allowed me and allowed a lot of people that I've talked to be a bit more free with the stuff that they create.
Yeah, and we've in the video and the podcast, we prioritize talking about kind of two main influential categories when you're creative. So people look around them for inspiration. So people look forward. They see things that are happening around them. They combine them. Those are the forward lookers. We got the backwards lookers, and they're the ones that resort to their own like journaling and dialogues and experiences. They get away and isolate themselves. So there's any kind of range of forward lookers to backward lookers. But then one of the most important things I think that kind of brings it all together for those that are creative and specifically ministry or the Christian field is that we always have to keep our eyes up, to God. We got to make sure that we continue to tap into the source. If we have access to the Holy Spirit, which is arguably the most creative source in all of existence, then we need to make sure we keep plugging into that source, because creativity, inspiration, it's a limited well. There's only so much we can pull from it. So if we get disconnected from the thing that matters, then even if we make the best thing in the world and the most unique thing in the world, and no one knows what the inspiration is that we pulled from, but it doesn't point to Christ and it doesn't glorify God in worship, then how significant of a piece is it really?
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to killing the bulletin. So how did
you were happy about that one?
Yeah. Was this a popular topic on your on your video, or how was it received when you suggested that we need to set fire to the
this and I will say, I will clarify for people who have not seen that video that I'm not suggesting that every church burn their bulletin, but just many of them. I think it was actually relatively well received. At that time, it was our most watched video before all the live streams started to hit. It was exciting. I think probably the thumbnail of me holding up a bulletin on fire probably helped out for something like that. But I think for us and my church, and kind of how we came to the conclusion and the story of that was we're finding, probably like a lot of churches, a lot of bulletins lying in the pews after service or in the trash after service, or a lot of them just never picked up. And we were finding even the ones that picked them up, you could tell they were picking them up. They would quickly glance over them and then would chuck them to the side. They weren't interested, right? It wasn't that the information in there wasn't interesting. That medium had lost something that is no longer valuable to them. So to us, it was a matter of, okay, well, that's not working. And we're putting I know like a lot of churches, a ton of time or money or resources into making that happen. What would be the alternative? So we went around and we did a big survey, of just a blind survey of 75 people, just randomly asked them, what ministries are you involved in? And then what communication methods are most important or relevant or effective to you? And when we crossed that data together, we could see, per ministry, which of these communications were the most effective. And what we expected, obviously like our like maybe our men's ministry would almost certainly communicate differently than our youth ministry, and vice versa. But what we found was fascinating is that the number one most requested form of communication in every single ministry was push notification or texts. That was the number one across the board, except for our 60 plus. They wanted mail. So we got to keep doing mail for that group, right? But the people wanted digital communication. It sounds like the dumbest, simplest thing in the world, of course. But, for us, that was a matter of really putting a bunch of energy into our church app. I think a lot of church apps are just worse, harder to use versions of church websites. And if you can't add value or put something on that app that is interesting or exciting, then people aren't going to do it. Targeted push notifications for us, to where we can send out push notifications to just the men about a men's event, and just to youth about a youth event, and just to women's about a women event, has been incredibly popular, because we can pitch it as, listen, I personally don't have kids. I don't need to know what the nursery is doing, right? And that is basically resulting in a digital bulletin of only the events that are relevant to me. And we found, even for a ministry like the men's ministry, which typically has a bit of an older group, I would say, I would expect at least more reliant on that print media. We killed the bulletin altogether. We got rid of flyers and all that kind of stuff. And we had a monthly thing, or I think bi-monthly thing, the men's breakfast. A lot of churches do it. And I was expecting, this is the first one that's entirely digital. We're probably going to see a little bit of a dip and then eventually get back. And we saw, a 20 to 30% increase on the first men's breakfast. People still, they heard about it, they found out about it, and it can be scary to make that jump to an entirely digital skip space. And I know, it's not good for every church. There are certainly some churches that need that print media, but for us, it really worked out. So I think, to me, it's less of a matter of telling every church, burn your bulletins, and more of like, look at the communication methods you're using, and if they're not working, then find a better way to do it.
And this doesn't help any other church, but we were reflecting that Grand Rapids made this change just in time, because this was a very recent change. Right.
Yeah, the app has now been incredibly instrumental, now that, bulletins are literally physically impossible during this season. So
Yep. And probably for the foreseeable future.
Yes,
I don't see anybody really jumping to passing out stuff with handprints and germs all over. Not. Okay, next topic, and this is one of my favorites. Fonts.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And okay, so we all like to hate on Papyrus and Comic Sans. So sure. Off the gate, they're just those are obvious.
Right.
Even with the ancient VBS, I've heard that argument.
Yeah.
Still
yes.
Still a no.
Yes.
But it's a kids ministry. I don't care. All right, give me the lowdown. You're taking aim at Helvetica too, right?
I am, and I am.
Yep.
It has been pointed out by
Yep.
many of the people in the comment section that Helvetica is actually the Blackbar font, which I get it. But I think to me, my background is very much primarily graphic design, so fonts share like a very close part to my heart, next to church marketing and all that. To me, fonts are the equivalent to like nonverbal communication in design. You can write the same I love you in like a super grunge font and a script font, and they mean different things depending on, the shape of the letters, which I think is really cool. And there's some fonts that do some, a script font saying I love you that does that really well over something like, we'll say Helvetica, because Helvetica is the example that I ran at in the thing. Helvetica is an excellent font. It's probably one of my favorites. But the problem is Helvetica, especially for font snobs, people use it for everything. They'll just douse everything in this huge like paint of just Helvetica because it's the best font. It changed the world of graphic design, and it definitely did. But that doesn't mean that it's the best font for every purpose. It doesn't mean that you should be using on every single thing that you do. And there's other different inflections. There's other different forms of communication that are out there that you're not using because you're stuck in this little box because you want to pick the best font or choose the best font. So I think with everything, and a lot of the questions you've been asking, it's about like, what am I trying to communicate? What am I trying to do? Is it working? If not, then maybe we need to think about some of those fundamental tools that we've been using over and over again, and they're not helping us anymore.
Yeah, we actually just had a discussion in the Discord. We pulled up a bunch of big fashion brands, and someone had basically put them side to side, their logo over the past couple of years, and they recently rebranded to a sans serif font. And it's literally like Saint Laurent and Burberry, and their original fonts looked unique, and it looked like them. And the new fonts are very clean and minimalist, and they're nice, but they literally all look the same. So there's a caution. Like I love Gotham, and we couldn't afford Gotham at my church, so we went with Nexa, which is the little cousin. And I love Nexa, but Nexa can't go on every single thing. It's not going to fit every single thing. And I think that's the biggest thing, that when you're talking about fonts, other than just rejecting the ones that are terrible, like if someone brings Bleeding Cowboy to your desk, just push it away. But embracing and understanding the unspoken and subconscious things that the font's saying, that's just constantly what we see.
I think something worth noting, one of the things that resulted in a lot of comments on that video and in a lot of other places is, so people would ask, okay, well then what fonts should I use, right? Like, okay, so I've burned these ones. What's left? Okay, hundreds of thousands of them. But I can't tell you what to use on your bulletin. I don't go to your church. I don't know anything about your church. I don't. Maybe if I go, something will come to mind. But it's a matter of asking the question of, what am I saying and to who am I saying it? And what do I want them to feel, right? And when you get an answer to those questions, now we can start looking at the fonts that are available and picking the best tool for the job.
Yeah, and a weird thing that I think we've kind of seen is, of course, you have this spectrum of experience and what people that are coming to us and talking to us and watching our content. And I think a difficult thing is some people just don't know where to start. So that's where a lot of those questions came from. Like someone was like, I remember a couple comments were almost like snarky. They were like, well, I can't afford to pay for Gotham. Like, fine, but there's other good fonts out there. Right. I think there's just a disconnect that people don't even know where to begin when it comes to this kind of stuff. And even for conversations we've had behind the scenes, we're like, okay, we need to do this video. So we just released one on audio lately, and we're like, okay, what kind of like 101 course should we release? And then we're like, you know what? People are asking like 100 course questions.
Right.
So sometimes you almost have to step back, and it's a little bit of a tricky situation whenever in the field that we're dealing with, because you have the people that are experienced and they know exactly what wingdings is. And they know not to use it, but then you got other people that they're just like, what words are you saying? Like, I use Times New Roman because that's what appears in my Google Docs. Yeah. Like, and so that's kind of an interesting tension that you do have to deal with, specifically in this field.
Yeah, I wrestle with that all the time because you're almost like run the risk of you sounding dumb. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, I need to take this back to elementary level so that I can grab everybody. And some people
Right.
are going to go, knew that, knew that, knew
Right.
that.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's
Mhm.
okay, because
Mhm.
you're bringing in other people along with you too.
Absolutely.
So I would also, I don't know where this kind of falls in this discussion, but I can also tell. So we have, as of this recording, we have 15 people on our team. We have video guys and graphic designers. And when I'm hiring a new designer, a new video guy, this is one thing that I look for, because your font choice, I can kind of tell where you are with your
Mhm.
skill level. Call that good or bad, call that,
Sure.
maybe
Sure.
I'm discriminating, but font snob, I'll own it. But
Right. Right.
you can kind of tell where people are based on font choices. Do you guys see that?
Absolutely. I think to me, it's especially for graphic design. I know a lot of video people that are just horrible graphic designers, but it's especially for graphic design and animation, anything that requires the use of fonts. Though to me, a solid use of fonts is understanding sort of the subtext of graphic design. It's understanding what are the subtle ways that I can communicate outside of color, outside of composition, outside of the photos that I'm using. Fonts they are more of a 102 thing. They are more of like a more of advanced thing that you can use to communicate, but they are still incredibly important. And knowing not just, I know one thing that I look for is not just the font, but the kerning and the leading, the spacing between the lines, the spacing between the letters, how it's all like you can have an excellent font that is used horribly, right? And just no concept for proper white space and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it is absolutely. It's a super, super important tool. And if they don't have that figured out, I'd be kind of worried.
And
I
I
think-
think in a broader sense as well, not to move too far away from fonts, but I think we've seen kind of this history. Like we're generating new things so quickly as a society. Like you had a very large gap between like the printing press and the iPhone, but now we're having like all these like just the distance between things that are being generated and created are getting smaller and smaller. And I think it's kind of the same way with our field. We used to rely so heavily on specializations. Like I was getting in a freelance gig a while back where someone's like, can you be the producer for this environment? I already have an editor, but he doesn't do anything but editing. And to my mind, like, I hope that we continue to move away from that, because my role in the past 5 years, I've had to adopt so many things, graphic design, and I've had to learn what fonts are, and I've had to learn video and live production and all these other facets. And I think the larger you can kind of expand your knowledge and have a greater grasp of these things is going to be more helpful as we grow and move forward. There's nothing wrong with specializations and being like a master of a trade. But I also don't think there's a bad thing about being a jack of many trades either. I think there's advantages and disadvantages to both. So I think when it comes to specifically like fonts and design, I think it's probably a good thing to start if you're trying to get into this field, to get a little bit of knowledge in both. If you're a communications guy, learn some design. If you're a video guy, make sure you know how to run audio, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. I think the downside of that is once you kind of get to this level, it can ruin you. I mean, you won't be able to watch a TV show or anything besides,
Oh, for
be
sure.
watching a sports
Curse of
game and
knowledge.
seeing a lower third and be like,
Right.
turning between that A and the T. Come on
It's
now.
just wrecked. As soon as you go
over.
look up what kerning is, your life is over.
It's
It's just
over.
that will
It's
all
over,
be
man.
you see for the rest of the
So,
time.
I know,
Yep.
I know, man. All right, we'll move on swiftly. All right, let's kind of
Yep.
hit two topics in one. Let's talk live streaming. So obviously, this was
Yeah.
kind of the biggie that took off for you guys. So tell me not only some fast and cheap ways to up my live stream, but also maybe how to improve my live stream for free.
Right, for sure. I think, the video that we produced was very much for absolute beginners that were just trying to figure out how to live stream for the first time. And the thing I said in the video and thing I still hold true today is the most important thing is that the gospel is preached. God is not blessing, the gates of heaven are not opening only for those with high production value, right? Like if all you have is a phone, than preach to the phone in your living room, right? And that was one thing we talked about. I think when you want to get into getting a little bit more advanced, doing lower thirds, doing graphics on screen, playing videos, all that kind of stuff. Honestly, my one biggest tip is if you haven't heard of OBS yet, you need to jump on that train. OBS is a open broadcaster software, I think is what it stands for, but is an entirely free software that is built from the ground up. It's open source to do 99% of what any church live stream needs to be. You can run graphics with it. You can run lower thirds. You can switch between as many camera angles as you want. You can run your audio through it. You can even record with it at the same time as you're streaming. It is what we've recommended to nearly every church, and some of them they have different directions, and there are other options that are like Wirecast that are paid that have a couple more features. But if you're just getting into this for the first time and you're trying to figure out what you're doing, OBS is a magical unicorn that you need to just jump on and explore some rainbows. It is amazing.
Yeah, and I think one of the most important things that we've seen this. It's really easy to try and start a live stream and then look at what Life Church is doing and look at what Elevation Church is doing, and to just get totally discouraged and squashed because you're like, what I'm doing doesn't look like this. What I'm doing doesn't sound like this. I think the phrase is comparison is the thief of joy, right? And going into this, especially just trying to get the objective of preaching the gospel, maybe you didn't have a live stream before this season. Maybe you just started one and you've had a lot of issues. But I think don't compare and do the best that you can with what you have. Don't try to get too fancy with it. I was on a conversation with some guys from Life Church a while back, and they said, when the simple becomes fancy, fancy becomes broken. So don't overcomplicate things. Just take what you can, make the best of it, and then improve incrementally along the way. Just because you don't have 16 camera angles doesn't mean what you're doing isn't valuable for your community, especially. You know, there's probably plenty of instances, especially because we deal with a lot of small churches, where if someone saw an elevation type performance at their church, they might get distracted, or they might get frustrated with the lights, or maybe they get frustrated with the fog or how something is turning out. Like, just because elevation is doing it doesn't mean that that's what's right for you. And I think that's just such an important kind of hurdle to get over. Like, we've all been there. We're all like constantly comparing ourselves with other things around us. I think in creatives, we have a deep sense of just discomfort with our own abilities and skills. So there's a natural getting through that. And there's going to be a natural comparison that happens in your life, but you can't let that define or stop your ministry. So I think that's alongside the technical, also be very, very intellectual and forward thinking about it, so that you can identify when those things are happening in the season you're in.
It's a very, very good point. Very, very good point. And so I've been encouraging churches to, start with what you have. Version 1 is better than version none. Then when you can get to 2.0, move to 2.0. Then when you can get to 3.0, move to 3.0. Like, it's incremental. You know, when you can take that step, take the step. You know, but yeah, don't get too ahead of yourself. So, good. All right, let's talk audio versus video, and the importance of audio over video. So, kind of how I've phrased this with different resource videos and stuff that we've done is, people can stand a good audio, bad video,
right?
But not vice versa.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Would you agree? You want to talk?
Absolutely. And I made that exact comparison in the video of showing, you know, a really garbage video on my iPhone with all the lights off in my room, but using this mic and using a nice camera, but then recording with my iPhone and shoving it behind my computer fans. well, you know, it's just horrible sounding stuff. And it is absolutely night and day. I would say, you know, people say, you know, a video is 50% audio and 50% visual. I'd say it's about 70% audio, and it's about 30% visual in the end, right? I think it's incredibly important, and unfortunately, it's very, very overlooked. I know if you compare the questions in our Discord to, if just even asking which camera should I buy versus which mic should I buy, it's 10 to 1, right? because people are very concerned over the visual aspect. We are visual creatures at the end of the day, right? But that audio thing, I'd be, before I upgrade from my phone to a camera, I would be upgrading to a proper microphone to run the whole thing. That would be my first step if I was doing it from scratch. Once again, it is incredibly important. And I think even if you don't have the budget to purchase a new mic right out the gate, one of the easiest and cheapest things that you can think about is just preparing the room that you're in. I know even if it doesn't sound like a big deal, little things like air conditioning and a fridge running in the background, or a computer with the fan spinning because you're recording onto it, that makes a huge deal to the quality of your sound, as well as having big, flat, hard walls around that with not a lot of stuff on it. That's going to cause a lot of reverberations. Putting up some pillows or some blankets. We've gone so far as there was a podcast we recorded a little while ago, and our guest at the time recorded inside his closet at home just to be surrounded by all the clothes in there, because he knew it would produce the best sound out of what he had. So, I mean, that's what matters in the end, the product that you're getting.
Yeah.
Now, the perfectionist content creator in me would be remiss if I didn't say it's best to have both if you can.
Yeah,
of course.
Especially when you step into the narrative field and the bumper field, or if you have a video that's it's complete visual storytelling. Make sure you are intentional about the tracks that you pick and that kind of stuff. So be remiss to go without saying that. But yes,
right.
Yeah, good. Okay, as we wrap today, one last topic for you. So the last few videos that you guys have put out all have to do with social media and things like that. So give me some tips and tricks on how to up my social media game.
Yeah, I think so. My first tip would be to go buy a book by Phil Bodle called Rethink Communications for churches. It blew my mind, and every church should buy it. Most of the time, I don't recommend something for every church. Every church should buy that one. But outside of that, I think most churches treat their social media sites, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, as advertisements for their ministry, where our ministry happens on Sunday mornings, and it happens on Wednesday nights and occasionally throughout the week. And we are going to tell you about when the ministry is happening. And that is a very old school way of using social media. I mean, to be frank, I think instead getting into the mindset of, instead of using social media as an advertisement for our ministry, using it as an extension of our ministry. There are a lot of people, both saved and unsaved, on social media, probably a lot more than you could ever reach walking into your building. And that is a massive opportunity to be able to reaching people. And you're probably not going to hit them with a full hour sermon and get them to click on it. You're probably not going to be able to get them to sign up for small groups right out the gate, but giving them little snippets, little itty bitty micro content throughout the week, just constantly, is going to keep that in their minds, going to keep that frame of reference going. As Phil says, it's about engaging people. It's about encouraging people. No, I'm going to get that wrong. Now I'm mixing it up with our stuff. Informing people, engaging people, and inspiring people is his thing. Those are the three forms of content that he's creating at all times. And the informing people, which is the advertising stuff of, we've got a Sunday coming up or an event coming up, that's only 10% at most of the content that he would recommend posting. And I would tend to agree. If as the way that I think of it is if there was a TV station and every Sunday morning at 9:00 it played the most killer TV channel around, or killer TV show around, and that's what everybody was watching, everybody was talking about, and then all throughout the rest of the week it played ads for that one show that they have on Sunday morning, the only time you would tune into that station is once a week on Sunday mornings, and you would not go back the rest of the time. So use that as a platform for ministry, not an advertisement for ministry.
Yeah, and I think the important thing about being online, and a lot of churches are learning this, like if you're not online, then people don't really know anything about you. Your online presence is the front door. It's the biggest front door you're ever going to get, and it could be a huge advantage if you embrace it. But if you ignore it, if you make your front door look gross, or if you just tack a bunch of ads on the front, people aren't going to want to come in. So you got to look at it like that. And if you don't mind me caveating a bit, kind of combining with the live stream thing that we were talking about, one of the big things that has been on our hearts and minds is now we are transitioning to this online space. We see the need for live stream. We see the need for being online. We see the need for understanding and engaging with social media, understanding and learning what analytics mean online. Now, I think the next kind of tangible question or line of questioning comes with, what does online church look like? Because I don't think we should ever step backwards. I don't think all churches have to be online all the time, but I think there has to be a vision and a strategy that each church is developing for their presence online. And the kicker is that there's no how to do an online church for dummies yet. Like, we just aren't there. And I think that's okay. And it's also scary and it's also exciting. I know it excites us because we keep asking the question, what does online church look like? And we don't really have an amazing, tangible answer. But also, I don't think that's what you have to aim for. I think at least if you're asking the question, what does my online audience need the most? What are they missing? How can we connect them to the life-giving hope that we so desperately feel like every single person needs? I think online is just one of the biggest, most tangible tools that we can use and embrace. It's just a matter, you got to start asking those questions. You got to go out of your way to learn it. And for a lot of people, it's hard to understand, being online and social media and content. There's a lot of age differences that people talk about, but even there's just a learning gap sometimes. Even people our age, like I haven't hopped on TikTok yet. I don't think I'm planning to, but I understand its value. I understand its target market. I understand the content that needs to go on there. And if I put a 30-minute sermon on TikTok, I'm going to get eaten alive. So I think it's such a valuable time and a good opportunity to start asking these questions. What does my church look like online? And what could it become if we continue to make online a priority for our church?
Good points. I think that as we close today, I just want to ask Caleb, your MySpace page. Why is it still up?
It's actually only on Faith Freaks. Actually,
I never had a MySpace. I had a Faith Freaks. I wasn't allowed to be on MySpace. Right?
You weren't allowed to be.
I wasn't. I was pretty young for that. No, I did have a Faith Freaks. That was the Christian MySpace.
Faith Freaks and GodTube. That was his two most visited sites.
Right. Awesome. Well, guys, thanks so much for your time. Best of success with Blackbar, and man, I'm so glad that God's given you guys a platform to help people. There can't be enough of us out there trying to help navigate the space. And what I try to tell people is, I'm not an expert. I mean, we're trying to figure this thing out together. We might have bumped into some things along the way that works, that we just want to share. But so I'm happy to have met you guys, and thanks for what you're doing. Really appreciate your time today.
Yes, thank you for having us on.
My fellow church media friends, thank you for what you do.
You did it. You made it through Easter.
So that means right about now, all of my church creatives are exhausted.
I know that things are hard right now, but God's got you where you are for a specific reason.
If nobody's told you yet, you are absolutely brilliant.
Whatever you are doing is your alabaster jar. It is your oil that you are pouring on Jesus' feet, and it is beautiful.
Your boss or your pastor may never understand what it takes to do your job or get it done. That's why you're in that position and not them.
But just know that, man, your creativity is the very image of God placed in your life. The way you critique, the way you pay attention to details, you do things with your heart and with your soul.
Remember that God designed you along with everybody else with a unique purpose in mind, and He built you with the ability to serve your church in this season.
You have overcome the most incredible obstacle that the modern day church has seen, and you did it over Easter weekend.
So way to fulfill your calling and exercise the gifts that God's given you.
This season is going to bring great things. Just keep holding on there and make sure you keep focusing on God.
Everything that you've done this week and this weekend is all for the gospel.
The work you do does make a difference, and the kingdom of God is bigger.
And there are hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people who have heard the message of hope from Jesus because of what you've done.
The things that you create and maintain aren't just live streams and videos and graphics and social media posts. They are pure and literal vehicles of the power of the gospel.
And just know that you work for the greatest story ever told.
Because that story can't be told without the storyteller. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We now have the opportunity to begin working on those things that have been on our important but not urgent to-do list.
Enjoy the fact that you create and let God do what he does with it.
Start strengthening what it is that you're already good at so that you can come out of this better than ever.
Thank you for being a creative. Thank you for being an innovator.
And don't forget, the work you do unto the Lord.
He sees you, he's proud of you, and he loves you.
Keep it going, stay strong, and take a little rest this week.
I pray that you have the wisdom to know what to do, the strength to be able to do it, and that all things that God's will be done. God bless.
The show notes for this episode are available now at makingsundayhappen.com.
That was a video that the guys at Blackbar produced to say thank you to you for all your hard work over the last few months. You've really done a fantastic job. Through emails and social media and talking with you through the million Zoom calls that we've all been on over the last few months, I've heard firsthand from you guys how hard you're working and how much sacrifice you're making for your church. You're not gloating at all. It's not a brag thing. It's just something that I've seen and noticed. If you're in communications, if you're in church media, especially your media department in your church or your communications team, you guys are really unsung heroes during this time. You should be very proud of the work that you're putting out and how you've helped your church through this time. I know your pastor and your senior leadership has leaned on you. We've done our roundtables every Monday where pastors are in those roundtables, and I get calls from pastors and things like that. And you guys are really unsung heroes. Communications folks, church media folks, you've done a fantastic job over the last few months figuring out live stream, enhancing your online worship experience, communicating with your church, all that. So way to go. Good job. Great work. All right, before I leave you today, I want you to check out our Church Online Tips web series. It's on our website. We've been releasing new videos nearly every day to give you short tips and tricks on how to enhance your online worship experience. Lots of great content for you to check out. Just go to 1230.media/church online. You can watch the whole series there for free. 1230.media/church online. Well, we love you guys. We are here for you. Go out there and create some incredible worship experiences this weekend. I'll catch you next week.
Making Sunday Happen is a production of the ministry of 1230 Media. For show notes, archive episodes, and more free resources for your church, visit makingsundayhappen.com.